Welcome to Salve, a therapeutic podcast for digital ailments. We're here to ease your online aches and entrepreneurial anxieties, one session at a time. With our host, Jordan Brannon, and today's guest, Drew Hodgson from the HamletNY.com. Today's case, the arthritic joint pain spurred on by launching an online store with a brick-and-mortar retail presence.
Hello, everyone. This is Jordan Brannon, and we are back with another episode of Salve, your podcast to find the cure and treatment for your digital ailments and pains. Today, we're going to be talking about that deep, throbbing pain at your joints that occurs when you're trying to grow an online business into a brick-and-mortar retail presence. I'm really excited to have a coalition client joining us today who has gone through this journey, experienced the pain, and was willing to share a little bit about all of that with you today in hopes that we can actually maybe treat some of what's happening for you right now. So I'm going to turn over the microphone to Drew. Drew, thanks so much for being with us. Maybe you could introduce your business, yourself, how you landed in this chaotic world of e-commerce and brick and mortar.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. I'm Drew Hodgson. I'm the owner of a company called the Hamlet British Store. We were a brick and mortar originally in the New York area about 4.5 years ago. We opened right in the middle of the pandemic, which people thought we were absolutely crazy, but we were successful, mainly because Brits couldn't go home and they would end up coming to our store to get the goods that they couldn't go home for. So it actually ended up benefiting us a little bit. We realized how much we could grow and what the opportunity was, and we ventured into the online world probably now about 2.5, 3 years ago. And to Jordan, your point, that's where some of the pain came in, trying to grow quickly in that online presence. So, yeah.
So you guys, you started in a position of pain, the sort of opening the business in the pandemic. Now, was that actually the plan, or were you like kind of halfway there? You'd already signed the lease and then like the pandemic hit, or were you like, nah, March 2020, we're going to do this?
No, we actually made the decision in the pandemic. People thought we were absolutely out of our minds. We literally said, you know what? I couldn't go home. I'm a Brit. I'm an expat living in New York, and I couldn't go home. And I was like, you know what? We've always wanted to do something like this. Rents were low because of the pandemic. We're like, let's just go for it. Okay. So we did. And it was a lot of people said they give us 6 months and we'll be out of business. But here we are 4.5 years later and we've grown 300%. So
man, it is a crazy time because rents being low is like, I'm going to go ahead and move this mountain just because it doesn't have as much snow on it as it usually does. Kind of like a little bit of, is this a typical thing? Have you been to a therapist to sort of walk through some of that decision making?
Well, I think my wife goes to therapy now. Yeah, pretty much. But,
okay.
I'm open at the moment.
Okay. All right. So she's doing the work for both of you. That's good.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. So you guys did the brick and mortar thing. You started the pandemic. Where is the brick and mortar location? Just some context for anybody who happens to be hitting up New York. Like, where are they going to be able to find the actual retail location?
It's in Mount Kisco, New York, which is about 45 minutes, 50 minutes on the train north of Manhattan. It's a commuter town for people working in Manhattan typically, and we're right there by the train station. So we get a lot of people actually coming up from the city for the day to visit us, so it's nice.
Very cool. And is the typical customer someone who is sort of trapped in America, the Brit longing for a bit of home, or is this someone who is like, I kind of like the king, and I'd love to sort of invite him back with a small purchase?
At the time, it was the queen. But,
yeah, right.
But now it's the king. It's a combination, actually. It's interesting. We did our research before we opened, obviously, a ton of demographic information to find out how many expats actually live in the area, found out there were a lot of them, and that there wasn't anyone really competing in that market for us. So I would say probably 50 to 60% of our customer base in heads, but about 80% of the revenue is actual expats because they come in and they do their grocery shopping, basically. They spend a lot of money in there. The other is made up of people with British heritage, people who travel a lot and appreciate things from around the world. We get a lot of those coming in too. And I have to say that where we are in Westchester, New York, it's a relatively wealthy area, right? So you've got a lot of those types of people that have traveled a lot and understand the culture of the UK.
They got onto a particular cookie or cracker or something like that. And they're like, I can't live without these now. I talk about them at parties way too much. So I've got to have them on hand. Okay, awesome.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we also opened a pub about a year ago around the corner because we knew that we had everyone coming in and we let's open a pub as well. So we have a pub next to it now called the Ambleside as well. So
okay. So you decided not to do the pub during the pandemic as well, just for
that would have been a terrible idea.
extra giggles and extra stress. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
All right. All right, so you got the brick and mortar going, kicked off in COVID, and started to see some momentum. Like, what was sort of that early growth cycle like? Like, how quickly did you sort of feel like this is a good brick and mortar idea? Like, was it pretty quick? Like, as soon as you're open, you had people coming in, and it just felt like a win. And then at what point did online begin to become sort of a part of the conversation? And moving beyond just maybe a website and, Google Maps presence, you start to think like, hey, maybe e-commerce is what we need to do next.
Yeah, I think when we first opened, we were inundated with customers for the first few weeks, but you got to be careful there, right? That's that sort of that shiny new object that people come and see. But within about a year, after year one, we started to see double-digit growth just in store. And we realized that as word was spreading that this was clearly a successful business and it was going to continue to grow. Also gave us our chance to get our margins better because we were able to buy in bigger bulk, et cetera, right? So it started to do really well. And then we realized to ourselves when we look out in the market that there wasn't anyone really that great with an online presence. So we just got a local person to build us a website, put it up real quick. And we got a little bit of uptake. I tried to do some of my own sort of pay-per-click type stuff, trying to do some Google ad, not Google, but Facebook and Meta type stuff. And every time I did it, it did well, but I'm not very good at that stuff. So I was like, so it just started to kind of tick up a little bit. And then we realized after a while, like, yes, there's a limit in store. The brick and mortar has a limit. Online really doesn't, right? Yeah. So that's where we decided, if we want to really grow this business, that's what we need to do.
Okay. So the initial effort, again, had a sense this was working, started to see there's a bigger market opportunity, not a direct competition. Did you do some research to sort of get you to sort of gauge on your own, sort of like what's the overall sample size that I can pull from, market size that I can pull from? How did you sort of do the arithmetic to sort of make that jump? Because I think a lot of brick and mortar store owners, they're sort of used to, how many people are on the sidewalk, how many people are driving past, what's the population, income level. That formula feels comfortable, but looking beyond my neighborhood, my city, sometimes feels a little more daunting.
It does. And one of the first things we started to do was look at, what's the expat population in the US, right? Starting to look at the entire country and then which pockets of the country are they? And you find certain areas where they're attracted to, the Northeast being one, California, Texas, Florida, other areas like that, where you see a huge amount of expats. And then we started to look to see in those markets, do they have a British store? Because there are quite a few of us out there, right? I think we're one of the biggest. We have a very large store. It's a full grocery store, basically. A lot of them are more than little tiny shops, which are great. I love them to death, but they're a lot smaller. So we wanted to see in these markets how many of the actual brick and mortars are out there. And we realized that there are some pretty large markets they've got no access. And so that really got us thinking even more that that's where we want to target a little bit more when we're trying to get the online up and running.
Okay. And so any particular websites that you used or tools that you used to sort of do some of that demographic analysis or discovery? Was it just like a Google search and
Google is my friend?
Okay. All right.
Google was my friend. I'm also, by background, I should say, I'm an actuary, right? Okay. So I'm used to working with statistics and demographics and that type of stuff. So I actually get a kick out of working in Excel and getting in there and really looking at that type of stuff. So it was actually quite enjoyable for me to spend a few months really trying to do that research and understand what our market looks like.
It had a particular itch that was getting scratched as a result.
Exactly. Yeah, I still do it just for fun. So.
Yeah, I'm always one of the things I find as I'm talking to a lot of our clients. We've been in the agency side for 16 years. Before that, we had 7 years building our own e-commerce stores and running them. Is how many, a common pathway, if it's not code, it often is something in sort of financial analysis or, that could be accounting, bookkeeping, actuary, or, just a little bit of a better understanding and love for numbers and spreadsheets. That seems to be a valuable backbone skill set to have if you want to kick off an e-commerce business. So maybe that played into your favor here.
I think it's any business, to be honest with you. Yeah. I have 2 daughters, right? And I always tell them, like, having a good math background will stand you up in a lot of areas in this world, especially if you're going into any kind of business. I agree with you. I think it's really important.
Yeah. A lot of our conversations in this pain point podcast have come back to how much money are you losing and why? And often it's the brands that are really sort of marketing led only, where the CEO is sort of coming off of that marketing perspective and they're just not watching the fraud piece. We talked about that, or the rate of returns. And those things are really helpful. Once you close them, all of a sudden you have this big competitive advantage because you're watching sort of those dollars and cents and the numbers in and out, and it frees up, a meaningful ROI on each sale that somebody else is eating because they're not watching that closely. And so it's always I think a healthy, like you said, a healthy skill set to have.
Yeah, it kind of leads into a little bit around one of the biggest pain points we have right now, which is the tariffs. Right, we are, we're an import shop. Right. So a lot of that has been hitting us very, very hard. So we've sort of struggled this year a little bit, but we got ahead of it. We were able to sort of see it coming. We knew what was happening. We were able to stockpile behind. I actually started negotiating with companies in the UK to try and reduce some of the costs for us. There's a lot going on. So I think we've done okay to survive it so far, but it's still one of our big pain points right now.
Maybe you could give us some context. I mean, just like sort of pick a product year over year change, just sort of because of that percentage, anything like that, just to sort of help contextualize. So I think for some people listening, tariffs feel a hop, skip, and a jump removed, and they're missing out on the fact that there are businesses where this is like, we're keeping the lights off and not turning the heat on because we've got to.
Yeah. So a great example would be, I'm not going to name the brand because I know it'll be unfair, but I will name, the type, which is basically chocolate. So it's been hit with so many things. So if it's coming from Ireland, it's EU. If it's coming from England, it's UK. So it's either a 10% tariff or a 15% tariff today is being added to that. And that literally gets hit on our bill. We get the bill and I have to pay it before I get it into the store. But what people don't realize is that the value of the dollar has decreased as well. So that's about another 10%. When you add it all together, it's about 25%. And outside of tariffs, cocoa prices have gone through the roof. So actually, some of the chocolate we sell has gone up 30 to 40% on our cost. And when you're operating at retail margins, that's not it. We try to absorb as much as we can, but we have no choice but to raise some prices to try to offset. So it's been a struggle.
Okay, so we won't mention any political candidate names who may or may not be on a dartboard in the back of the Brick-and-Mortar or even in the pub right now. We're just
no, not at this point.
Okay,
no. Honestly, it's not even the tariff; it's the uncertainty. Right? It's not knowing when. Like a great example is I've got a Christmas order coming, which is worth close to $200,000 worth of product from the UK. It won't arrive until October. I don't know what mood Mr. Trump will be in and what tariff I will pay until then. So how much, and I have to price it now. So it's that uncertainty that just kills you. That's the hard part.
There is from our own entrepreneurial experience, and I'm sure from yours, you get very good at sort of managing an unsettled stomach, and just like those moments of like, the good, maybe I should talk to you about sort of what the best antacids that the UK has to offer are. There might be something better than what I can get out here on the West Coast.
Most of what I'm taking is prescriptions.
Okay. All right. So we've covered therapy. We've covered prescription meds. We're doing really well and helping people in this journey. They're like, we want to sign up for this. Absolutely. So kind of bringing us back to that online journey. So the first sort of experience went someplace local. You had a website built. What platform did you go with? How did you pick a platform, if you did at all? What was that sort of shopping experience looking for a web designer like? And maybe what were some of the key learnings there?
We actually had a friend of a friend, honestly, who does basic web design, nothing fancy, not owning their own company, anything like that. And we were just looking to put something out there at that point, basic, to try to start in that space. She happened to recommend Shopify to us. So we ended up using Shopify and getting that up and running. The website is unrecognizable from what it was back then. Obviously, with Coalition's help, we've done a lot of work on really getting that up and running and more user friendly. And now it's an awesome site now. So, but that was the beginning. So it was really just a friend of a friend, to be honest with you, that helped us out with that.
Cool. All right. So, but you happened to land on Shopify, which is great. We talk about a lot with clients, especially in sort of a really in a startup phase, maybe even a bit more premature than you, where they think they have a good idea for a business, but it's not proven yet, and they're beginning to try to put the pieces together. I'm a big proponent of doing something is better than doing nothing. And so a lot of the decisions that brands get frozen on early are usually, there's right or wrong is not really the point. It's how quickly you're making the decision and moving and getting to that next step, because really the only wrong decision is not doing anything. So I think it's good. If you have a local person that you can talk to who can help, if you have a friend of a friend, a lot of times that is a good step. Will that work need to be revisited later? Probably. But
Yeah.
the reality is you'll be around a little bit later if you've taken some of those steps and gotten there. So you landed on Shopify, and this is often where we start to see headaches emerge, especially with brick and mortar. Shopify comes from this digitally native background where it expects you to have started your store online and your business online and grew up online and now are still online. And brick and mortar has, over the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years, has sort of become a, increasingly important part of who Shopify is trying to appeal to. But your business is starting at the very end of that time frame. So talk to me about sort of some of those pain points that you had as soon as you were starting to get that store. You had a template maybe you liked and were beginning to try and populate it. What caused the indigestion in that particular point in time?
Yeah, not just indigestion, but also forced us into making a change.
Mm.
In store, we had originally started with Clover, which is a wonderful system.
Yeah.
And we actually use it at our pub too. So, and they still do use that at the pub. But what happened then is the connectivity between, Clover and Shopify and how to link. And we ended up using a company called SKU to connect the two together. Again, a good company, but with our sort of volume and how we have large, 30,000 SKUs.
Mm.
And we have huge volume, right, of product, thousands of certain items, whatever it may be. And inventory control is critical for us, right? Especially for an online business, because the product is moving so quickly. We have best buy dates for food we got to deal with, all those different components. So when we found quite early on, we were having all kinds of stock issues. And a lot of it was the communication between Shopify and Clover and SKU and having issues with all that type of stuff. So that created a huge amount of headaches. We ended up, luckily I have skills in Excel and how I do things. So I was able to start bringing, including sort of like best by dates within the SKU. So we could easily search it and do things like that to make it easier for our staff to be able to understand these things. And also when you think about online, people are much more sensitive to product and dates online than they are in store, right? Because they order online, they get a shipment to them. If that product expires in 2 weeks, for example, they're not happy. In the store, they see it and they're okay. So it became a much more sensitive thing. So just trying to get that all synced was an absolute nightmare. Yeah.
And so I take it absolute nightmare meant it didn't really happen ever. You got to a point where maybe the pain was a bit more tolerable. Yeah.
I would say the way that went was that we it became less tolerable when Coalition came on board, and I'm saying that in a positive way.
Okay.
Because we grew so fast.
Yeah.
Right. So we have seen triple digit growth in the last year.
Yeah.
Online. So when we were just doing 4 or 5 packages a week out to people, it wasn't the end of the world. But now when we're doing 10 to 15 a day going out the door, it became even more problematic. We were finding ourselves 10, 20% of the time having to email customers saying, oh, I'm sorry, we're out of this product, or I'm sorry, that date is wrong, or whatever it may be because of the growth. And so that's when we finally decided, we reached out to you guys and said, we need help here. How do we need to sync this? You need to introduce this. You need to figure something out so that we can get this all together.
Good. So I love that we are part of the good part of the problem.
You worried there for a second, weren't you? What I was going to say.
Yeah, I was, okay, man. Delete. It is interesting. One of the things that I always try and communicate to our teams who are doing strategy, who are doing project management, is that marketing accelerates the underlying business. And if it's not a healthy business, if there's problems, they begin to show up more and more, and they become bigger and more obvious. Or if it's a really good business, the strong points also show up. So you sort of get both, and hopefully the good always wins out. And so that's actually, I think, good kind of anecdotal proof of that. The business itself helps contribute to the popularity of the product, the brand, the reach, all of those things. Great strategy, recognizing who your audience is, all of those sort of advantages you have, but then also that pain point becomes a bit more obvious. It's sort of, we have an open wound now instead of something maybe a little bit more subtle. And they definitely got to see the doctor for that. So walk us through that solution. Like, what were some of the things that have really helped and are helping to kind of bring some of that pain and of the marriage between brick and mortar and online, back into a handleable place where you feel like you can scale with what's happening?
Yeah. So Coalition introduced us to Shopify POS and got the connection point there and sort of held our hand a little bit through that process of dealing with them. And we ended up deciding we were going to move out of Clover and into Shopify POS. Again, it's not a negative on Clover at all. We find them excellent at the pub and no issues. But We decided to kind of sync it all together, just mainly for inventory purposes and other components of it. Actually got worse before it got better. That anyone who's ever been through any kind of transition like that in any business, it's always going to be an absolute nightmare. We were down for a few days, which you're talking thousands of dollars a day for a small business is a lot. And we had pain. There was some errors made in transition of data. It was like, it was awful for a couple. But, Coalition was there for us as well to say, we've, putting up banners on the website to let people know immediately if there's problems, the customers understood, really kind of helping us get through it, even though we were basically, I think my wife was in tears and I was throwing bricks at the wall and punching walls. It's all figured out. We're thinking to ourselves, what have we done?
Yeah.
But now we've come through it. We couldn't be happier. Like it's syncing well. The system in store is great. Everything is wonderful. And now we feel like we're on a platform where we can really grow.
Yeah. What are some of the best upsides that you're seeing, or the places where that pain has come down perhaps the most for you? And maybe, how would you sort of quantify the win? Is that hours back? Is that dollars, added dollars of revenue? Like, what are some of the metrics you might use to evaluate sort of the resolution of that pain?
I think it's administrative and internal, right? So because of the different systems, we have to put, I do a lot of our ordering and a lot of our financial analysis, and I had to kind of marry two different reports and really, and with inventory being constantly out of whack because of not syncing correctly or delays in sync, right? Someone buys online at the same time as someone buys in store and you got an issue. And now it's instantaneous. I can pull one report now for online and I can look at so much more analytics around where people are coming from, what's happening in store, capturing more information in store that can then automatically feed into our mail lists. All those things just became so much more streamlined. So it probably cut my administrative time in half, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Doing that. So that was huge.
One of the things that we see with some of our clients where we are unifying a point of sale with an online store, and Shopify to Shopify point of sale is a great sort of, connection and relationship to have. One of the things they talk about is they feel like their brick and mortar customer becomes more valuable because they are more often becoming an online customer. And you can start to brick and mortar. It's sort of like, can I have your email? Can I have your phone number? It feels a little, but once you're into that sort of Shopify system, you have the ability to see some of these customer accounts, and it feels a little more, the upsides to say participating in our online store for a brick and mortar customer increase. Like, do you see any of that happening already in terms of, hey, our brick and mortar customers are sort of engaging more meaningfully with email lists and the social and all of that?
Yeah, no, they are. We have seen, in particular on Meta, we've seen a pretty significant increase in our followers. In store, customers are always pleased to see when they buy something that their information, or when they click email receipt, their information is there, which they never had before. We have a couple of people complain about that, but you're always going to get a few. Like, why have you got my email? I'm like, I don't know, it's just there. But yeah, no, it's definitely been positive.
Are you doing anything with the Shop app? So they have sort of, instead of just a Shopify store, your own domain, all of those sorts of things. Are you doing anything with the Shop app in terms of promoting your products or ensuring your products are listed? Is that something that's a part of your business strategy, kind of using Shopify as a marketplace?
I haven't really delved into it. I've got to be honest with you. I know about it and I see sales coming through it. But I'm gonna plead ignorance here because I really don't know much about it. It was interesting. So I was having a call with our accountant recently, and she was talking about how some of our sales tax in some states out there was suddenly being paid through Shop, and I was like, I don't know. I don't know what's happening over there. It is on my list of some of those things to really dive into to see. Number one, is there problems with it, and number two, are there opportunities there with it, which I haven't really looked at that closely yet. Yeah,
maybe a little bit of context. So Shopify obviously has this strength and sort of the background as a front-end software, right, for e-commerce stores. I think one of the things that the leadership team there realized was that, especially now because they kind of own the market, they have a ton of data and they have access to a lot of products, a lot of pricing, a lot of promotions. And because they also offer a wallet, they can now make these connections between these different places. So they've published the Shop app experience, which basically is a pseudo marketplace, and may eventually become more of a marketplace, especially as they embed more deeply with ChatGPT and some of the others that are out there. And it becomes a new selling channel. Brands on Shopify can opt into having their products listed or opt out. I think the default is opting in, and then it's up to you if you want to opt out. Customers earn points. They get to use their Shopify wallet, and address book sort of begins to feed into, I can just easily drop into another store and they know who I am. which again, maybe is part of that little unnerving experience. But it does sort of create a sales channel that's meaningful. One of the sort of, at the time of recording, one of the suspicions we have is that as the Shopify and ChatGPT partnership deepens, that'll be one of the primary ways that we see AI transactions actually taking place within some of the ChatGPTs of the world without sort of coming to a store necessarily. Yeah. So that's sort of that encapsulated, I guess.
Interesting. It almost feels like then the way you're describing it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's almost eventually, if it continues to grow, becomes a competitor to like an Amazon in a way, right? It's like it's one marketplace to shop multiple and many different stores and products, right? Yep. Is that a good way to think about it?
Yeah, they have rewards programs attached to that. So you have you earn some shop cash that you can use across different storefronts. Unified carts. So if you're adding, a couple of items from here and a couple of items from there, there's some options to be able to do that. And again, I think one of the things that we're predicting is that we'll see the LLM experience grow to become its own full marketplace where, essentially I can open my transaction and close my transaction in ChatGPT. Shopify is an amazing source of data by way of that shop experience for a lot of products, because the big problem with ChatGPT is it wants to hallucinate all this product detail. And the best way to control that is to actually go to somebody who has input that data, manages that data, and curates it, which is store owners like you. And Shopify becomes more of the vehicle for communicating that. So yeah, and very much like an Amazon type of marketplace experience, I think.
That's interesting stuff.
Yeah. So looking at the online store today, retail business, I think talking about like how you're handling inventory, this is often one of the biggest challenges. We've touched on that a couple of times between the two. Some of our clients will do set-asides. This is available in retail stores. A retail store inventory and shelf inventory is fully separate from online store. It's not available as soon as it hits a retail store. Others, it's shared, and we're going to try and grab and pull something off of the retail shelf if we need to get into a box to ship. How are you thinking about inventory splits today and managing that?
Right now, we're doing the latter of what you just said.
Okay.
A combined inventory, pulling from the shelves. That's one of the other pain points we're facing right now, is going from $1 million a year to $3 million a year is one of the biggest jumps you'll ever make in your life, I think. In any business, and in particular in retail. And we are right on that border right now of saying we almost need to, we actually had a conversation last week about how we need to develop a shipping center area near us, like either in the rear part of our store where we are and have a separate shipping area, or we need to do something, because right now our retail employees are literally pulling and packaging and sending out. And as it grows, we're realizing we're at that point where we're like, okay, this might need to get separated sooner rather than later. So it's actually, as I said, we're right on that border of that right now.
Okay. So today it is that sort of hustle out, grab it before the customer does. Someone shoved to the floor just so you kind of Black Friday.
Luckily, I think luckily with us though, with the product we sell, most of those products we have, hundreds of each item. So it's not like it's stuffed animal where you've only got two, right? I've got a Cadbury Crunchy and I've got 3,000 of them, so I'm not too worried that someone's
exclusive signed by the royal family where there's just one.
No, nothing like that. Right. I mean, it does happen. There's some items, and it has happened where we're like, oh crap. And it's usually because the inventory might have been off by one for some strange sort of maybe theft. Who knows, right? And we sold one online. It now says 0, and it's like now we've got -1 and we don't have the product. But it doesn't happen that often though.
Yep. Okay. So, and that's, you feel like that's better managed today because of the unity of Shopify and Shopify POS, but you're about to hit that next evolution of inventory, perhaps where there is, someplace a little cordoned off, a back room or something. The janitor's closet becomes the new shipping warehouse for the Hamlet. Is that sort of the next stage?
Yeah. Well, we actually just took over the space behind us.
Okay.
To create a new, I won't call it a warehouse, but a new storeroom for the shop as we were growing, because we were growing out of our space. So we probably put it back somewhere. So yeah, no, that was about 6 months ago, something like that. We added that. And for the first time coming up, in a few weeks, we're now at the point where we're bringing in an entire container from the UK just for us, which we've never done before. So we're a little panicked. Right, that's a lot of products. Over. That's going to have a tariff on it, unfortunately, but it's coming up.
Yep. I'll call my good friend Donald and I'll say, hey, we'll play some golf.
Please do.
We'll get something to go there for sure. Someone will make nice. Give him a concession that makes him happy.
Yes.
Okay. So and then we've talked about inventory. We've talked about just some of that challenge. One of the other things that we see happening is just pricing expectations and differences for online customers versus retail. Are you running the same pricing and promotions throughout both? How do you think about sort of discounts and merchandising online versus merchandising in store? What's maybe some of the strategies that are helpful for you there and have been helpful as you've sort of navigated going from brick and mortar to online?
It's actually a really good question that we've discussed a lot. Right now, we run the same pricing on both. We have special shipping rates that we offer to customers if they spend a certain amount, and we're doing other things with Coalition. We're trying to figure out how to boost some of that because shipping costs can be really difficult for us. But in general, we've been running the same sales or whatever it may be. Typically for us, we get to the point where a product is getting close to Best Buy date, it goes on sale. The only difference being probably is when it gets really close to Best Buy, we will pull it offline.
Okay.
Because it gets shipping time and everything else. A customer online is going to be like, they get it, there's one day left on it, they're not going to be happy. Whereas in store, in store, they know it.
Yep.
Right. So they're buying it and they know it and they can see it. So it's not as big of an issue. So that's the only time we really separate is in those situations. We are talking about other promotions we can do where we can do more online. We're actually in the process right now of building a loyalty program.
Yeah. Okay.
That will be online and in store. So from that, we'll probably offer some specials that might just apply to online or might just apply to in store depending on what we're doing.
Nice. So that's maybe a great transition point for us again to kind of get ready to close up the conversation. Your list of must-haves. So like, again, you got some road behind you now with both brick and mortar and with the online store. Just the things that you think everybody else in that journey or along that journey should have. That could be apps, that could be vendors, that could be any number of things. But what would you highlight and say, like, if I could turn back the clock, talk to myself, a couple years ago and just sort of preempt a lot of things, what would be sort of your best practices, your best resource list, anything like that?
Well, my first one would be go with the same POS as online right when you start. That would be number one. But at that time, we didn't know that's what we were going to end up. My other part is don't be afraid to grow, because we were a little afraid to begin with, and we were slow on the take up, and we had a product that we knew could do well. And I think we're probably a year or two behind where we could have been if we had done a little bit more. The other part of it is, and this is a shout out to you guys, I suppose, a little bit, is to say we should have delved into SEO and Meta and those things a lot sooner than we did. But you live and learn, and now we're where we are, and having you guys as support and taking over that part of it. I mean, it's clear what the growth has been like, and I do feel like you've been a partner too, like a really good partner. Our main guy that we talk to is amazing. He's awesome. Yeah,
good. Yeah, we again, I think part of that comes from Joel and I's experience of being the e-commerce owner and trying to run everything ourselves. Just again, we had the technical background, we had the marketing background. So in some ways maybe it was a little bit easier, but just there was a sense that we didn't quite have that expert friend working alongside of us. One of the culture things we've tried to instill in the whole team is we've got to be that expert friend. You have to be trusted to give hard advice and good advice. But you also have to be someone who's a know-it-all and is willing to be a know-it-all about a particular area. And because that's helpful, right? We all like having that friend we can go to and say, I mean, you were an actuary, so you've probably gotten more than one call from somebody in your life. The fact that you can do Microsoft Excel probably means somebody thinks you're a computer guy as well, and you have an e-commerce store, so they probably, I've got a virus on my computer, Drew, can you help me? So that's definitely something that we're aiming for at Coalition, is that expert friend. So it's good to hear that is coming across loud and clear.
Yeah, and I've learned so much about SEO, and I never knew when we first opened our store. I just thought naturally people find you, and then I realized, there's all kinds of algorithms, all kinds of Google stuff you got to do, all the games you got to play, and I have no idea that that whole world was even there, to be honest with you. So it's been a learning experience for us too.
Very cool. Well, we're glad to have been a part of the journey so far and really looking forward to what comes next. I know the team is probably already talking to you about some of the AI and LLM pieces and how we see that playing out. We'll be talking about some of that more in this podcast as we move forward, what the AI SEO landscape looks like and some of those things. And I'd love to have you back, Drew, for another follow-up conversation, just because the experience that you have is so valuable and I think so helpful for others to listen into. And maybe we'll get an update on just how my call with Trump goes. See if we really got those tariffs settled out.
Fantastic. Yes, that's fantastic. So appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Drew. I'm going to go ahead and we'll wrap up for the day. I hope that's helped cure someone's concerns, woes, worries, pain as they think about moving from brick and mortar to online. Bye, all.